Good morning from the studio. Today I am giving you 5 pricing tips for your wedding photography. So let's start it as 5 tips for wedding photography. There were 5 things as of today, March 1st. The pricing course is out on the members website. So if you're a member, you have access to the full course. The 5 tips within here are ones that didn't 100% just kind of fit into the course or didn't necessitate an entire video, but there's lots of content there. It's a 10 plus video series all about pricing, and that course should meet you wherever you're at. There is a video if it's your first year in wedding photography and you're just not sure where to set that initial, that single price, which is probably the hardest thing to do. Like, how do you just pick a price out of the air? There are some assets and some ways to do that, as well as all the way up to somebody that's maybe a seasoned professional and you just want to make more profit on each individual package. There's a video for everything. So even if you are just getting started this year, it is a course that is worth revisiting potentially next year. So if you're a member, you have access to that as of March 1st of this year. Let's get to the 5 tips. First, I guess maybe I'll preface this with the fact that pricing is a challenging art, and it's challenging in the sense that you never really know exactly what you're doing is correct. There is some stuff in the course to try to alleviate that, but the problem is that you don't want to underprice and you don't want to overprice. And surprisingly, underpricing is way more likely to lose you couples than overpricing. If you're overpriced, you're also probably going to lose out. If you're trying to build a market where there is no market that exists, you're going to have some problems. But by underpricing, there is a good chance that people just aren't going to take you seriously enough. So in the beginning, there's definitely a balance. When I first shot my first wedding, I think it was $700 or $800, and I kind of bumped up from there. In the beginning, I really relied on the fact that I was, in fact, a new photographer, and that's why I was so inexpensive. It was kind of an excuse for why it didn't cost a lot of money. And a number of people kind of found, they were like, oh, there's like this student who's amazing. He just hasn't yet bridged into the industry, and that's what he's looking to do. And that is why the price tag reflects that. So you find a little more, one, you find reliability in clients, because if you're working with people that are hiring a $50 photographer or $100 photographer, one, they're not going to respect you. You're a vendor. You are by no means an artist. And two, they're going to cancel on you. They're not going to show up. They're going to be really flaky because they don't have a lot invested. When you get to the $5,000 clients, they're going to be very, very happy, and they're going to respect you and trust you as an artist. And when they're paying that kind of money, they basically, like, I feel like it's an inverse relationship. The stress of shooting an expensive wedding seems like it would be more, that it would be very stressful to shoot like an $8,000 or $10,000 wedding day. But the truth is, the more the price tag tends to go up, the easier the actual wedding day is. So maybe a future tip. We're already into like a bunch of tips and I haven't even got to the list yet. And maybe one more tip to kind of close the loop on this is that there is no way, if you're an $800 photographer, people are going to spend on their wedding what they believe they are worth. If they are if they have a $5,000 budget, or if in a lot of cases their parents have given them a $5,000 budget, they're going to spend that. They're going to look for fair value for that $5,000, but you're not going to be like undersold by somebody charging $800 for the day. They will, in all likelihood, spend that $5,000. Again, looking for fair value. So don't stress too much if somebody's like massively undercutting the market, that they might find some couples, but also know that those couples come with a significant amount of stress. And in the beginning, that you basically, like for myself, I wanted to work as much as I possibly could. One, to build experience in the industry. 2, to build vendor relationships. The more you get out there, the more you work, the more florists you meet, the more caterers you meet, the more venues you can potentially become a preferred vendor at. There are a lot of good things about working a lot. And even to this day, I feel like I still do that I'm happy shooting my 60 plus weddings every single year. Normal year, not this year. Well, maybe this year, I don't know. It's still early. We'll find out. What I do really enjoy is just getting out there and taking the images. Maybe one other pro tip, still haven't got to the five points I have. If you are struggling with the idea of shooting a lot of volume, know that there are ways you can outsource everything. You can outsource if you do hybrid photo video coverage. You can find somebody to edit your videos. There's a number of companies on the internet that will edit all of your images for you. So there are ways that you can scale that high volume business without actually just completely obliterating all your personal time and becoming a 10x full-time job. There are ways to scale it in a nice way for your life and for your family. And If you want to travel, normal year again. That's kind of what I've done, that I've framed my entire business around life happiness. And that life happiness for me is having time freedom. So I shoot a lot of weddings, but that's kind of all I do this year. I do a couple commercial shoots per month, but for the most part, I am only a wedding photographer now, and that makes me the happiest. I'm also a wedding photographer. I'm not a wedding photograph editor most of the time as well, which is not something that I love. In the course, we'll actually talk about pricing out of things that you don't want to be doing. So if you don't find value, you don't find enjoyment in something, to actually either make it super worth your while to do, or to just kind of remove that from your actual workflow. So those are my intro thoughts. We're already at a number of minutes here. So here are the points. Pre-inquiry, you have to make people feel something. I feel like this goes with all things that are in your social, your online presence. If you are telling stories, if you're posting something on Instagram, if there is a way that you can make that story into something that actually triggers some sort of emotional response from people, don't take it too far. There's ways to abuse this, definitely, but I would say if there is a way that you can create video content, or you can do a blog post, or even your About Me, I would say in the majority of cases, it's typically a bride looking at my website, so I try to communicate directly to them. After a number of years, I kind of know who my ideal couple is, so it's very easy for me to write to them. This goes all things in your business. This goes for your Instagram, this goes for your Instagram stories, this goes if you're on TikTok, if you're on, maybe Clubhouse is exempt from this right now, but we'll see where things go with that. But make people feel something. If you're just writing generic copy that doesn't emotionally trigger something in you, it's going to just be, you're going to be another generic photographer out there, and the pricing, they're not going to make it to price, or if they are, they're buying somebody specifically on price, and again, you're maybe not an artist yet. Point number 2 is to build out a pricing guide and include testimonials in that pricing guide. So basically, your pricing guide, there's a number of them. I think there's 3 of them on the members website. If you want to download them, they're templates. You can just modify them and export them as PDFs and send them to your couples. Basically, the process with that is that you want to pretend as though they've never heard of you before. So that pricing guide is a full start to finish, like, hey, what's up? I'm Taylor. This is what I believe wedding photography should be. This is a number of testimonials from real couples with real pictures in there as well. Here is how easy it is to work with me, which is another important thing. I think you can include this on your website as well, but I feel like the higher into price point you get, the easier you can be for couples. Basically, the flip, the counterintuitive flip, that the more people spend, the more they're going to trust you, which means that you're going to get less emails, just the generic ones that people ask questions and they're just kind of like, yeah, just making sure we're still on the calendar. But they're asking different questions, and you got to play that ping pong game back and forth. When you get into higher price points, there is a pretty good chance that most people are going to be like, yeah, he's a professional, I trust him, he costs money, he must be really good. He for sure has our date on the calendar still. Maybe that's another sub point here, is that price and perceived value, 100%. Like if you are an expensive photographer, if you start at $3,000, if you start at $4,000 for a day, kind of speaking, I guess maybe US/Canada, I'm in Canada, like Australian, kind of somewhere in there. UK market, I'm not too sure of actual numbers for pricing, but it's all just kind of taking that information and seeing how it works in your specific market. The more you get into that higher price point, the more couples are going to trust you, and the easier your day is going to become, and also the more leverage they're going to give you as far as just like when you have an idea and you want to do a shot, that they are going to be genuinely excited about that, and they're going to make that happen for you, rather than trying to like override the situation and be like, oh, can we do this photo over here? And you're like, oh, like that's in direct sun. Like, no, we shouldn't do that. Higher price points tend to just trust you a lot more as an artist, which is kind of cool. Have space for couples to scale. So this is another one of the 3 points. I got way more than 3 points here. This is going to be a while. I anticipated this video to be 5 minutes. It's already not 5 minutes. Have space for couples to scale. Again, on those templates, the pricing sheets that you have access to if you're a member, have packages from something wherever your starting point is. If you're now starting at $1,400, have that as a 4 or 5 hour package, maybe a 6 hour package, depending again on your market and the needs of the general kind of couples in your area. But then scale all the way up to something that would be like pretty much out of anything that you think could ever happen. So if you're at $1,400, that top package, if you have an $8,000 package that includes literally everything that you could ever offer, don't include weird stuff like television. Somebody did that once. I don't know. I remember it, so I guess maybe it's good marketing. It was somebody in the UK, actually. They were offering, if you bought their top package, you also got, it was around the time that flat screens were kind of becoming prominent, and you got a free flat screen TV through wedding photography. A bit weird, but I don't know. I remember it, I guess. So have space for couples to scale. Don't include TVs in that top package. Include albums, include parent books, include photo booths, include everything that you could ever offer in that top package, and set them so that that is the first one that people see. So they anchor to that price. They're like, whoa, this dude's an $8,000 a day photographer. And then they come down, they're like, oh, we can actually afford like the $2,000 package. But you're getting the perceived value of being that $8,000 photographer. Also, you can kind of play around with this too. I have different pricing sheets depending on where, well, one, where in the world somebody's getting married, but two, if they're getting married downtown Toronto, that's basically for me to go to a meeting and back, that's a 2-hour round trip. To go to an engagement session and back, that's another 2-hour round trip. To go, that's a minimum, I guess. And then to go to the actual wedding day, usually I leave a lot of buffer space, so it adds kind of like, I would say on average, it adds 4 or 5 hours to my wedding day. So I have slightly different pricing out that side of things. So if somebody inquires from there, they're going to see a slightly different price sheet. So you can play around with this depending on where people are coming from, maybe what venues they're at. You can make custom packages specifically for that. If you know that everything is going to be happening on site at this specific venue, maybe you make an 8-hour package and a 6-hour package because you know one of those are going to fit, and you send them that specific pricing. I don't think there's anything wrong with sending specific pricing tailored to the venue and the requirements of your couple. And then always have like a, hey, happy to make custom packages if you so desire. For actual numbers, tip number, we're not going to number the tips. You're just in here now. Thanks for being here. For actual numbers, don't do anything like the 1,999.99 cents. You look like a discount brand. When people are making an emotional purchase like wedding photography, a lot of them on some level, at least when you get into the higher price points, are craving some sort of exclusivity, and a price point with that is something that's actually a round number. I like to come up with very specific prices. I'm not going to just be like, hey, this is a $2,000 package. Come up with maybe it's $2,050 or maybe it's $2,160. Something round. I think round numbers also expensive and exclusive, and also the physical size of the number too. So on your pricing, the smaller, you'll probably notice this on price tags if you're just walking around and looking at shops. The more expensive things get, the smaller the price kind of is on that price tag. So if you're looking at if you're at Walmart and you're looking at all the discounts, like the numbers are like this big. It's like $199.97 and it's on a huge sign. The more exclusive things get, the smaller the price tags get and the smaller the numbers get. And sometimes the numbers don't even exist. I would recommend putting numbers on your pricing sheet. I know one dude that doesn't, and it's very confusing to me. I'll make a video with him at some point. I want to have a full conversation because I'm super curious about how a pricing sheet works with no numbers whatsoever on it. To loop back to the specific numbers, a specific number seems more honest and trustworthy. So if you're at $2,160, it seems like there's intention behind that price, rather than just like, I don't know, maybe I cost $2,000. And I know we're all kind of picking numbers roughly out of the air that match and align with the market, but if you can give them a little more intention, it generates just like a little tick of trust, a little more honesty, I guess, on your side, which is a good thing, and it's just kind of a stacking game. The more trust and honesty that you can put in your website, the faster and the easier it is for people to actually trust you and for you to become the artist. I was gonna do like an animation or something, but then I decided not to. I thought that would be distracting. You're not selling wedding photography, you're selling a lifestyle and a social image. So if you are in the low price points, maybe you are selling photography, maybe you are a very specific service that people are like, I would like one wedding photography, please. As you scale, you're no longer really selling wedding photography. This is kind of full social presence included. You're now really selling a lifestyle and a social image. You'll probably notice this. I feel like my life and everything that you've probably consumed, if you haven't watched this channel, subscribe and watch other things, You will notice that I travel a lot, that we make a lot of travel content, and it is outside of the wedding space. And my couples watch that and they get a sense of who I am. And on the wedding day, we talk about that stuff. We talk about that trip to Antarctica. We talk about safari in Kenya where they're going on their honeymoon. We have commonalities within that, and it is because I'm selling kind of this lifestyle brand rather than actually selling wedding photography. You will notice this 150% on my Instagram profile. Gabe McClintock, who is one of my favorite photographers ever, he did a workshop a couple of years ago now, and I was like, what do you think of my Instagram profile? He's like, I don't know what to think. Like, there's very limited wedding content on there, and it's because I do wear a number of different hats, but as a wedding photography sales tool, I feel like it's very effective, that I'm constantly traveling and working for someone or doing something somewhere else in the world, normal year. And that reflects very positively upon me as a wedding photographer back at home. I do get the question a lot of times, like, do you still even shoot weddings? And the answer is yes, I shoot a lot of them, but it's not necessarily what I'm marketing all the time. So if you're a commercial travel photographer and you're like, I also want a wedding brand, I do believe, this is maybe the unpopular opinion on the internet, I truly do believe that you can have that in one house under one Instagram profile. If you're doing something that's drastically different, if you're doing like industrial factory photography, maybe that you need a different website for that. But if you're doing something that is relevant to your wedding couples, I feel like you can kind of package all that up and it's not too confusing. No commas in your prices. Commas make you say, if you're looking at $2,500, a comma makes you say $2,500, which makes it seem a little bit more expensive. Again, maybe couples aren't spending their own money, but just one of those small little psychological things. $2,500 seems like a much better deal. It also makes, again, the price a little bit smaller and less confusing overall. We're definitely at five points already, but I have a few more. Suggest your most popular package based on what you know. So if you have an incoming sheet and it's like, hey, where are you getting married? Where's the ceremony? Where's the reception? If you know that those two pieces are separate and there's gonna be some travel time, build a custom package or suggest a custom package based on exactly what they are going to need. If it's a 10-hour day, like, suggest that right off the start. Don't, like, this is their first time probably booking a wedding photographer. So give them a little bit of help, a little bit of assistance, like, hey, this is what people would normally do if they were in your situation. And again, if you're in that higher price point, they will look to you as the expert and they'll be like, okay, Taylor says that we do need this. Taylor says that we do need a ceremony video because we're only having 25 guests at our wedding and we'd like to share that. That's a smart idea. So you can suggestively sell a lot of things. That is maybe one bigger tip for just kind of this year, is that everybody wants a full ceremony video, at least here in Canada, where it looks like maybe we're going to get 50 people into a room like this, or maybe 100 people, like if everything goes really well over the summer. So this is probably the year to maybe offer that. Even if you don't offer video, it's a very easy thing to do, to set up just one single camera, have a backup camera, have backup audio as well. But to do that, you're gonna make a lot of money, and it's a very easy upsell for any wedding that you have upcoming right now. You can be like, hey, for $500, I'm doing like just a single camera ceremony video for you if you'd like. And a lot of people are gonna say yes to that. I would say most people are probably going to say yes to that. Another thing, I guess, like broad tip before it even comes to pricing, is to market on trust and ease of integration into the wedding day, rather than some like skills or accolades you have in the industry. Or I've seen some people that just like list their gear. It's like, hey, here's what I shoot on. None of that really matters. If you can market on trust and how easy it is to work with you, it just makes the transitional process for somebody coming to a higher price point. Like, I feel like that's how you sell to that style of couple that actually has a little bit of money and they're looking for that artist. And again, you'll kind of start that trust line a little bit faster, so they're a much better client for you overall. I got four more. I still got 4 points in this 5-point video. Believe in yourself. Budgets are always flexible. And people need to know they're getting a great value, even if they are spending someone else's money. And if you're not confident enough in your pricing, specifically this comes to when you're on a phone call and you're just kind of like, you want to avoid actually talking anything money-wise. Believe in where you've set your prices. Look in the local area and make sure that you are aligned with what's happening locally as a starting point for sure. But know that they're probably comparing you, if they've contacted you because you start at $2,000, there's a pretty good chance that they're going to be interviewing a lot of other people, maybe 3 or 4 other photographers that are all within that price point. So don't feel like you're competing against somebody that you're not. And know that the higher your prices get within reason, the better your experience is going to be as a wedding photographer. But maybe one thing to warn against is that if you do increase your prices, it's very difficult to go back in time if you've booked people in at those higher prices. So it's a bit of a one-way door, but that one-way door, at least in the local area here, I don't think really takes effect until you get to about $3,000. After that, it's if you're going up to $5,000, that's a very difficult jump back to get. But if you're bouncing around that $2,000 to $3,000 price point, I think it's totally fine. Another thing you can do that we talk about in the course is that to push, basically, rather than changing the actual numbers on your pricing, if you know that you're booking a lot and you're very happy with the amount of money you're making, I take things out of the packages rather than increasing my prices. So my bottom package over time started at like probably 6 or 7 hours with an engagement session, and now there's no engagement session in it. Now it's 4 hours, but it still starts at the same. So I still have that initial, I guess, when people see on my website, they're like, okay, like he's within the bounds of what we can afford, let's contact. So it keeps me within that ballpark. And again, local area here is it's a smaller city. I think there's like 500,000 people, so maybe a mid-sized city. And to play within that market, I feel like I kind of have to be where I'm at. So that is, I guess, my perspective on that. And also, I've spoken to this a lot. I don't love making albums because they all come back in November and I'm finally ready to like have a vacation, be like, yeah, finish the season, and then I just get hit with 100 album orders, maybe not 100, but like 15 or 20 that people want before Christmas, and it's a lot of work at the end of the wedding season. That took me a number of years to figure out. There is money to be made in albums, but again, I kind of prioritize my life happiness a little bit more than just making money. I can make money by doing more weddings and marketing a little bit harder and booking a few extra jobs rather than making all of the sales within that. So I've found my personal balance within that, and if that's resonates with you, that's cool. 2 last points, maybe 3. Yeah, I hope you found this valuable. If you found this valuable, please click the like button on this, or subscribe, or send this to I don't know. You don't have to send it to anyone because you probably know other photographers in your area and you don't really want to share everything that you know with them. Next steps: phone call. In these current times, it used to be an in-person meeting. I always have that next step as the first email that goes out. So here's my pricing document. If you'd like to get in touch, here are the next steps, as well as talking about deposits. So my deposit is 50% based on most packages. If they go for like a crazy package, I'll make it a flat retainer of some sort. But know that they know the next steps. And if that next step is a phone call, if that next step is like, hey, here's like a PayPal or a Square form that you can just like book me right now because I'm available for your date. Just make sure that there is some sort of next step for your couples. Again, trust, guide them along the process. And if they don't get back to you, so if you send your pricing document out and they do not respond to you, I would 100% recommend that you follow up with them. Just gently, don't be too hostile with them because they didn't respond. But there's a pretty good chance that they probably reached out to maybe 20 different photographers, maybe 10 different photographers that afternoon. And if within the next day they all got everything back, and then they might have just opened your pricing is open on their laptop and they left work on a Friday afternoon, they close their laptop and your pricing document's up there, and that's why they didn't respond to that email, because now it's marked red in their box at home. There are reasons that people may have not got back to you. So one gentle follow-up is always encouraged. And that is all for the 5 tips. 5-minute video, all complete. Hope there's a lot in here. So these were a lot of points that didn't necessarily fit specifically into the videos of the pricing course. So if you're interested in that, head over to the members website. There's a link in the description below. And we go into all things pricing, including actually walking you through building your pricing sheet. I think that the most unknown thing for me, or the thing that I was the most, I guess, just nervous about and kept redesigning. One, I built my own website. I was a graphic designer or web designer. So I built my own website. So that was maybe a mistake because I just kept I was like, what's wrong? Like, why aren't people inquiring? Maybe I'll change all this. Maybe I'll take my website offline for the day. I'll redesign all of this. Like, why aren't people inquiring? Same went for when they got to my pricing. I'm like, why are people ghosting? Why aren't they getting back to me? Like, what's wrong with me? There's all these unknowns, and I feel like I just kind of like got way too deep into that. Meanwhile, what I should have been focusing on is just really kind of tailoring my entire web presence to put myself in a position that when they do get my pricing, that it's now maybe a 60%, like they're already sold. They already know that I'm maybe within their top 3 selects for their wedding. And when they get my pricing, maybe that bumps me another 5-10%. Again, all those little trust indicators while they're moving along your website and moving into your pricing document and seeing those testimonials and seeing those smiling faces with those testimonials. Very important to have an actual client image with the words. Otherwise, the words just look made up. Again, trust indicator. So by having all of that trust, you really do build yourself into a photographer that can generate more revenue from a wedding, which means that you're going to be shooting weddings that are much less stressful, that people are going to trust you and they're going to respect you as an artist. That is what the full course is about. And if you're a member, you have access to it right now, as well as all the templates that we'll be using within that. You can just go through those right now if you want a brand new welcome kit that includes pricing and that includes everything that I've talked about. Those are just ready to go. They're PSD versions, so if you have Photoshop, you can use those. Or if you have the full Adobe Suite subscription, the InDesign files are up there as well. InDesign is basically just multi-page. Like if you're designing a magazine, you'd be using InDesign. If you can download it, I would recommend that. It's a little bit easier just to build out a PDF very quickly, but not required if you're on the Photoshop plan. By all means, use Photoshops. That is all that I have to talk about today. Thank you for joining me for this 5-minute video. 5 points. I'm Taylor Jackson, and I'll see you next time. And don't forget to subscribe. That would mean a lot to me. See you next time.